Movies You Miss podcast returns with episode 218. This is going to be an epic episode. V, how's it going?
I'm tired, John.
Yeah.
That was a lot of movies.
Yeah. For two movies that took almost 8 hours to watch both of, certainly is a lot of movie. Certainly a lot of celluloid. Certainly a lot of, like you said to me the other night, a lot of marching as well.
Yes. That was nearly 3 episodes in one based on the amount of hours watched.
Yeah, and while watching both of these movies, I think I just kind of hit the exhaustion moment where I was like, my God, both of these movies had to have taken so long to make. And that's why we are here to discuss both of these movies without spoilers, because we do not spoil movies here, even though both of these movies are very well renowned, and I would imagine majority of cinephiles have at least seen versions of these movies. There are 3 different versions of mine, lengthwise. I don't know how many versions of yours there are. I imagine you will get into that later. But yeah, this exhaustion absolutely hit. When my film ended, I just kind of walked around. I did some stretches. I laid down. I was just like, wow, okay. And again, we'll get into when the last time that each of us watched both of our movies before this episode, because it's been a long time for me on both of these.
Yeah, you're right, John. It's been a long time for me, too. And there's only 2 versions of mine. One was a 1991 remastered version that added a couple minutes in there, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But yes, all right. I did not want to turn the TV on for a day or 2 after watching these films.
No, absolutely. I was done with screens and I broke mine up. I almost watched both of them on the same day, and had I done that, I don't know what I would have been able to accomplish, if anything, after that. Yeah. So I had to do one after the other, and even that was still I don't want to say the word chore, but it certainly was something to get through.
The things we do for our audience, right? But unlike
things we do for love,
so many of our episodes that we recommend, ooh, this could be a double feature. Let us know which one you like more. These should be broken up over several weeks. This is a good summer project.
Yeah, for sure. And it's kind of weird because when we did Lawrence of Arabia and Ben-Hur, I didn't feel like this.
No, me either. And that's the thing I was going to talk about too, is that these felt at their length.
Yes, they did.
And I was watching these movies thinking, man, Ben-Hur was just exciting the whole time, right? The pacing felt better. So I don't know if that's age or if that's the directors, which we'll certainly get into, the directors of both of our picks this week. But yes, I was thinking about it in terms of a ranked system for epics, and I think we've got our list. And we will continue to build it as we do these episodes.
Absolutely, yes. There are many other movies that are very long and epic as well. So we'll see which ones we decide to do in our next year of epics, because I think we just made the agreement that we are only going to do movies of these lengths once a year.
Yes, absolutely. I'm glad we agreed to that. It's certainly not possible to do much more than that.
No. And what's crazy is mine is almost an hour longer than yours. And
I thought it was only about 3 hours, and it's not. And then I looked on IMDb, and it says it's over 5 hours, and then I started crying, and then I turned it on and saw that it was only 4 hours and actually got relieved, which is crazy to say.
Yeah. I know, it's weird, because I've had both of these movies on VHS for over a decade now, and the first time I watched my movie, I wrote on Facebook about it, and I'll get into that, and then, same thing that you did, I went on IMDb to look at my movie, and I was like, there's no fucking way that my movie's that long. And then I remember looking at I grabbed my VHS copy and I looked at the back and it said 246 minutes. I said, okay, that's not 5 hours and 20 minutes.
No.
That's only 4 hours and about 8 minutes.
Yes.
So I was very much like, okay. Only, yeah. Very much though, I was like, okay, cool. I can do this. And I did it. And it's interesting because there are a lot of times with movies at this length where an intermission is absolutely a necessity. And I feel like both of these movies, the intermissions were exactly what we needed at the point that they happened.
I agree, except for with your movie's intermission, it actually just continued to sputter out the momentum for me. And I was like,
oh, totally.
But don't get me wrong. I did like your movie. I'm going to spoil that part of it. I did enjoy it. I'm super glad I've seen it. I've never seen your movie before, so I'm really stoked you introduced me to it because it's been on my list forever, and now I can say I've watched it, and I think you had seen my movie before?
Yes, I have, yeah.
Okay.
I bought the VHS. I think I bought them, honestly, either, if not the same day, within a few days of each other at Amoeba. They were both like $2.
Nice.
And I saw them both, and I was like, oh, well... gotta have V's pick. Now, this was way before, obviously, the podcast. So I was like, I gotta have this movie, and I watched it, and then a few days later, because I'd always been looking for my copy, and I never wanted a DVD of it. I always wanted a VHS, because I feel like that would have been the preserved way to experience a movie like that for the first time. So luckily, I found it, and I watched it. Yeah, and now, of course, that I've seen both of these, there's only one of them that I would ever actually purchase the 4K of if they came out, and we will get into that in a little bit.
Ooh, that'll be a good debate, because I think there's only one of them that I'd ever watch again. So we'll get into that. But I do want to say, given that your movie is 240 minutes long, right?
46.
46, okay. If you bought it for $2, that means per minute you are paying 0.8 of a penny per minute.
Hey, all right, nice
really
breakdown.
Good deal.
Yeah, it was a great deal, and it is a treasure of mine for sure. Granted, my VHS collection is a treasure of mine, regardless of if the movie is good or not. And these two are, along with my Ben-Hur copy and several other double VHS copies that I have. I love them. I adore them. They are what they are, and keep physical media alive. So now that we've kind of touched on a little bit of what we feel about both of these movies, and already said we don't spoil things, welcome to Movies You Missed podcast. We've been doing this over 4 years. V and I spent a lot of time in the entertainment industry, and you never know, we might jump back into it in the future. Who knows? We also really enjoy talking about the movies that we've seen in theaters or on streaming over the last week. And V, I'm not sure if you saw anything, but I saw one movie. So have you seen anything new over this last week?
I did not. I was planning on going to the theaters, actually, to seeing a couple and catch up, for the love of God, for our from our mid-year review. Please listen to that episode. It was very good, very entertaining, and I was shamed, rightly so, by John regarding the low amount of movies I've seen so far this year. So I need to start catching up, but unfortunately, a couple things got in the way, including me not feeling great, so I didn't go to the movie theaters over the last week. But man, you did get in one in. Okay, what did you watch?
Actually, no. Yes, technically I got one in, but there's another one that I completely forgot to talk about in our mid-year review.
Oh, okay.
And I texted you that I completely forgot about it. And I don't honestly know how I forgot about it, because I was so excited to talk about it. But I'm not going to start off with that one. I'm going to start off with a movie that I watched on streaming just the other night with my wife. Well, Amy was playing her video game next to me while I watched this movie. Right. This movie stars Georgina Campbell and Malcolm McDowell in a very small role. I wanted to see this movie in theaters. It did not last long, and for absolutely good reason. This movie knocks Undertone out of the worst horror movie of 2026 spot. This movie is titled Psycho Killer.
I mean, with a title like that, of course, it's going to be ass.
I was really kind of hoping that it would have some sort of redeemable quality. And even Malcolm McDowell couldn't save this movie.
He doesn't make good movies anymore, though. He makes
Not anymore.
A lot of
no, he's just having fun.
He is. He absolutely is. Like, no shade to him. Do whatever you want to work in Hollywood, and it's if you can get steady work, like, who cares, right? But
absolutely,
he's not somebody I would rely upon to be like, oh, that must be a good movie since he's in it.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. Whereas back in the day, that was the case.
Yeah.
But yeah, this movie, Psycho Killer, was so bad. I actually had to look at how much time was left about 3 different times.
Ugh.
And the first time, there was an hour left.
Why didn't
the
you turn
second
it
time,
off?
there was 25 minutes left, because I was already that deep into it.
An
and it was
hour
similar
left?
to
No,
when
you
I went and saw The Mummy. I know. I just was like, I'll just screw it. And even Amy was like, are you going to turn it off? I said, I might. I'm giving this like another 5 minutes. And then I just finished the whole damn thing, because why not? Worst horror movie, if you want to even call it that, of 2026. Psycho Killer, absolutely a 100% should miss. Do not see Psycho Killer.
Instead, just listen to the song by Talking Heads.
Exactly. Yeah, that's all I was thinking halfway through the movie. Like, Psycho Killer. I'm like, okay, come on. They could have done something with this. Now, and the way they used death metal in the movie was so infuriating. Anyway, so that's Psycho Killer. Don't see it. Don't waste your time. It's streaming on who the hell knows what. I don't even care. Yeah. But the other movie I wanted to talk about in our mid-year review was an absolutely cannot miss. This documentary is on Netflix, and I am not going to lie, I very rarely have trouble sleeping. This movie kept me up because it was so fucking insane. This woman that this documentary is about is in prison rightfully so. She is an absolute... like I said about the other one, Mackenzie from The Crash, girl being the definition of filth. The definition of filth is the girl that Maternal Instinct, the title of the movie, is the subject of. That woman is absolutely garbage and excrement. Oh my gosh, I could not believe what went down in this documentary, Maternal Instinct. If you can stomach it, definitely give it a shot. It's worth seeing because it is so out of control. I don't want to say I had nightmares, but I felt like I was on the verge of nightmares. I literally could not sleep that night. Whew, yeah, but it's a cannot miss because it's so out of control and insane. So Maternal Instinct adding to my you cannot miss movies of 2026.
All right, well,
so anyway, that's what I saw over the last week.
About it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, Maternal Instinct has, it's burned in my brain. I would say it's far worse of a subject matter than The Crash, even though The Crash is still out of control twisted.
I know this came out a while ago, but it's in the same vein, and I just thought about it again the other day. Back in 2020, so before you and I had this podcast, Netflix came out with a documentary titled American Murder: The Family Next Door. It's about Chris Watts. Have you ever seen it?
I don't think I have.
It's one of my all-time favorite true crime documentaries. It's done really well. I know that's super weird to say because people die. I get it. But in terms of how it's made and how the story's told and how it honors the victims, so good. I always recommend it when people talk about true crime. So yeah, American Murder: The Family Next Door on Netflix. If you're on this sort of true crime documentary kick, give it a watch.
I went back into it. There are times where I have these phases. I love me some true crime. I've read so many books of true crime. I just bought a new book called Scotland Yard, and it's the history of Scotland Yard and a whole bunch of their murder cases.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm back on my true crime kick right now. And I can't get enough of it right now. And at one point or another, I'm sure I'm going to fizzle out and be like, that's enough. I need to go into cinema again. Yeah. But right now, it's kind of what I need in a very fucking weird way. But I'm going to have to check that one out. Thank you for the recommendation.
Definitely.
I'm sure Amy will like it too because she watches a lot of it with me. Mm-hmm. And when she watched Maternal Instinct with me too, and she... Anyway... We have to move on. It is time now, I believe. V, anything else you want to get off of your chest or anything like that before we dive into these epics of epicness?
No, I think it's time.
All right, let's do it. Let's go back to the 60s, where both of these movies came out. V, you start us off in chronological order and historical order.
Yes,
although, what's true and what's not?
That's a subject for another podcast, not ours. Instead, we're going to talk about the movie aspect.
That's true, it is.
And my pick for this epic episode, I paired it with your movie this week, even though I'd never seen your pick before. And I just knew it would be the right thing to do, and lo and behold, it was. And strictly because of the location, the historical context, it just, one seemed to flow right into each other, and lo and behold, they really, really did, especially in terms of the time period and storyline, so that worked out great. And this week for our epic episode, I picked a movie that came out in 1960, directed by Stanley Kubrick, which a lot of people forget.
Yes, I actually did forget.
A movie that is referenced in an iconic 90s film that I've talked about before. Yeah. And for the longest time, until I was like 22 or 3, that's the only reference I had to this film because I hadn't seen it until then. I've only seen this movie once before in my 20s when I was on my AFI Top 100 Movies Ever kick and going through a lot of classics. Oh, yeah. When Netflix still had DVDs they sent you in the mail. I got this one.
Oh, back in them days.
So I am talking about the 1960 film starring Kirk Douglas, not titled Spartacus. Instead, this is Spartacus.
I am Spartacus.
Oh my gosh, it's also referenced in That Thing You Do, another pick of mine. I was talking about
right.
Clueless.
Yeah, Guy always says it. Yeah. No, definitely. Clueless is the most famous one, oddly enough. That one is the one people quote more certainly than That Thing You Do. But yeah, I get it.
And yet again, we have an instance of pop culture references that John and I hadn't really connected before because we didn't have an opportunity to until we watched these films. Just like the Godfather references and me introducing John to the Godfather and now he understands, You've Got Mail that much more.
Wait, you didn't introduce me to the Godfather.
I thought I did.
I've seen the Godfather many times.
Oh, you haven't seen the second one?
That's the one, yeah.
Oh, okay, got it. Well, I can't wait to introduce you to the second one, but we had to watch the first one first.
Oh, yeah.
I'll probably pick the second one in another Oscars episode since it also won a ton of Oscars.
Yeah, no, for sure.
getting into Spartacus, don't worry, it will not take me over 3 hours to explain this plot, especially because it's actually pretty straightforward. So is your movie.
It is. Oddly enough, mine is very straightforward.
And that's actually really good because these are such epic films. They have a lot of insane behind-the-scenes trivia. So instead of going into the plot, and we usually take a few minutes to do that, which is great. I'm glad we explained the plots to all of you listening, especially for those of you who hadn't seen the movie before, even though we don't spoil them. I'll give myself a little more time to get into the trivia just because it's so crazy, especially it's Stanley Kubrick. Of course it is, right? So we're going to go back to 73 BC at the height of the Roman Empire. This is before emperors of Rome, which we will get into in a little bit. And we are going to focus on a slave named Spartacus. We open up in a salt mine that looks just the definition of backbreaking. This man, Spartacus, has always been rather headstrong. For a slave, I guess is a good way to put it. He's always been rebellious. Even his mother talked about it. And this is Kurt Russell. There are no shots of him being a young boy or him growing up. We're actually following Spartacus from middle age back then. I'm sure he was like 27. But
yeah, that's a good point, actually.
But we see him rebelling against his slave owners, the Romans, pretty quickly because they are mistreating someone who's collapsed, because you literally work yourself to death as a slave, as we all know.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a Thracian, which means he came from the area of what now is called Bulgaria, Romania, Turkey. So that's the region that he's from. And the way Romans got slaves as they expanded their empire is that during and after battles that they won, everybody who survived would be captured and turned into a slave. And then they'd bring them back within the fold of the Roman Empire and assign them to different horrible, horrible duties. And one of the things that I noted really quickly in the beginning of this movie, actually, was just the ambivalence to life, because they did not see their slaves as humans, or it was just such a regular part of life for Romans that they didn't even blink an eye. And that part of the movie is just always so gross to me. But reality, unfortunately.
They're the Nazis of back then.
Yeah, I mean, they certainly had no regard for people suffering, that's true. And because Spartacus has rebelled once again, and he actually, it's called hamstrung, he bit the back, he basically performed an Achilles on this Roman guard. They've strapped him to the wall of the salt mine, basically. It's out in the open, it's on this crazy ridge, it's very precarious, very dangerous. And they've chained him to the edge of this, and they're basically letting him starve to death in the sun. And a man comes by named Spartacus, and he's buying slaves for his gladiator training, and he sees Spartacus and hears this story about how rebellious he is and says, hey, you know what? Why don't you unchain him? I'll buy him on the cheap and I'll get him out of your hair. This guy seems like he's got some spark. Maybe that'll help me with the gladiator training. Maybe he'll be useful to me. And so that's what happens. Spartacus goes with Spartacus back to his gladiator training facility, gets cleaned up. And one of the things that I thought was actually a little bit interesting, especially after watching Gladiator and other movies like that, is how appealing the gladiator lifestyle must be to a slave. Now, granted, it still sucked and it's still dangerous and they still die. I get that. But they are fed, they are clothed, they are bathed, they get women, right? And so I could see why slaves who have been put into gladiatorial training wouldn't rebel as much, because they have those temptations, right? And I thought that was kind of interesting, because during watching Gladiator back in the day when it came out, I always thought, well, these guys have weapons. Why wouldn't they rebel against their owners, even if they did die, etc.? And so anyway, I just thought that was an interesting piece of it. And so they go through the training, and Spartacus is getting much better. And of course, he's really pig-headed, and so he's doing really well. And he actually starts to fall in love with a woman who's also a slave within Spartacus's compound. And that actually starts to spark something within Spartacus, and that's when Senator Crassus comes along, played by Laurence Olivier. And he's a big asshole. He is trying to kind of overtake the Senate and get a lot more power in Rome, because there's never enough, right? And he's there to watch a couple of gladiator training sessions and things like that. But he actually tells Spartacus, like, hey, you know what? I want to see some fights to the death. And even though that's not normal. And so his whole crew, he's got his friend with him and their two wives, and they're all assholes. And again, just
and the way the wives are like picking the men and whatnot.
And like, I want to see him fight to the death. Like, bitch, why don't you get in there? God, they all suck.
Seriously. I love when he's like, get the best wine. Actually, the second best wine, and small cauldrons.
Yeah. And let's cover up the bust of this other guy that Crassus really hates.
Yeah,
right?
that was good.
So I really like that part of it too. And so within this whole party that Batatius is hosting for Crassus and his crew, Crassus actually sees that slave woman that Spartacus loves, Verinia, and he decides to buy her, which of course pisses off Spartacus because now she's leaving. And that actually is the spark. And within all that, and also them being forced to kill their training partners, even though in gladiatorial training centers, there's supposed to be no death. They all fight with fake swords and all those things. They actually were guaranteed not to die before this. And they had to kill their friends and all these things. So all the gladiators are getting real pissed. Crassus leaves with Verinia, and that actually sparks the revolt. Spartacus starts killing a bunch of the guards, which is awesome. All of the other gladiators rise up. They actually burn down the whole training center. Batatius leaves. And this is the start of a real-life historical revolt, a slave revolt against the Roman Empire that Spartacus started. Mm-hmm. This revolt lasts multiple years. And as they go through the countryside, they continue to free slaves and gather them to their cause. And this is the story of Spartacus becoming the leader of this giant slave revolt against the Roman Empire, and what happens and how much of a strategist he is and how many people actually side with him. And underneath that, the undercurrent is the politics of Rome, because Crassus is this awful senator who is really trying to consolidate a lot of power, whereas Gracchus, this other senator, is really is a populist, and he's actually trying to get a little bit more power to the people. And so there's this subplot of them battling it out too, and having a lot of crazy power plays within the Senate and things like that, and getting their assistants to do different things, which I really liked. Caesar also plays a part in this. He's very young in this movie compared to yours, which I thought was really interesting. I'm glad that we're going in this order this week. Mm-hmm. And the rest of the movie is just following the slave revolt and seeing how far they can go and if they're going to be successful, while Spartacus is still trying to find Verinia and actually free her too. And so it's a love story, which I really liked, and that's a really nice aspect to it. It's a lighter break from the battle and how awful it must have been back in the day. I mean, everybody talks about the glory of Rome because they're picturing being a powerful Roman. They're not picturing being a slave in the Roman Empire.
Right.
But it was great to revisit this movie. Like I said, I'd only seen it once before because it is very long, but Kirk Douglas does a phenomenal job. He was born in 1916, so he would have been 110 this year.
Whoa.
But he lived to 2020, even after his massive stroke. I remember him going on to the stage of the Oscars and getting that standing ovation. I remember that, yep. He lived to 103. I always remember him growing up. He was an important main character role in this movie called The Man from Snowy River. It's one of my all-time favorite movies, actually, that and its sequel. I think the sequel's better than the original. At one point, I'll introduce them to you, but I have to introduce you to the first one first. And then,
indeed.
He also worked with Stanley Kubrick before in Paths of Glory, where he plays a military man.
Right.
He was Doc Holliday in the movie Gunfight at the OK Corral, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
But I also remember him from my childhood because he was in 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Yes.
Now, Batatius, the gladiator owner, do you recognize him at all?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
I knew who he was right away.
Okay, because it took me a little while, and then there was a moment where I was looking away from the TV, and he was talking, and it hit me how I knew this man, because Peter Ustinov is the voice of Prince John in the animated Robin Hood from the 70s that you picked a while ago. And as soon as I looked away, it hit me. I was like, oh my God, that voice, of course. And Laurence Olivier being Crassus, I've never been a huge fan of his. I was always a fan of Peter O'Toole more, but I understand the legendary status of Laurence Olivier, how everybody says he was one of the greatest actors, and he was a badass. That's true. I mean, he was Zeus in the 1980s Clash of the Titans with Maggie Smith's in that movie too. I'm totally going to pick it for the future. I love that movie. Tons of stop motion and claymation animation. Love it. It goes along with like Jason and the Argonauts. Laurence Olivier is also in The Boys from Brazil. He's Van Helsing in the 1979 version of Dracula. He was in A Bridge Too Far,
nice.
Marathon Man, and the original Wuthering Heights. He was all over the place. He had a great career. And then John Gavin, he plays Caesar. He doesn't have a huge part in this movie, but I wanted to mention him only because he plays Sam in Psycho, the boyfriend of the woman who goes to the hotel, and he's looking for her the whole time. He has very striking features. He's a very good-looking man, and so I just wanted to give John Gavin a shout-out because the early 60s were good to him, and he's had iconic roles. But
definitely.
I saved the best for last. I'm so glad I never met Jamie Lee Curtis and became friends with her like you did, because all I would do would be talk about how hot her dad was. Tony Curtis plays Antoninus, a freed slave who becomes friends with Spartacus. He has a main role in this movie. He's so good in it. And man, he just has a presence to him. When he is speaking that poem, I almost started crying. The delivery was so good. Of course, we love him in Some Like It Hot, a previous pick of ours a few years ago. But yeah, great cast. Everybody does a fantastic performance, really delivers. And now we're going to get into why this movie is so epic. First and foremost, Howard Fast wrote the novel. It's a historical biography, basically, because it's not a fiction. 1951. And then Dalton Trumbo wrote the screenplay, and he was blacklisted in Hollywood until this movie. And Kurt Russell and a couple other people actually worked really hard to make sure he got credit for the film. And John Wayne and a couple other people who were giant dicks back in the day. Anybody who still loves John Wayne, please look into him, because he was not a good guy. Admitted
he
racist
was a big
too.
POS.
And they were all they called this commie propaganda and all this BS about this movie, especially because there were a lot of political undertones that were actually edited out of this movie. They had to be, because production company made them. But there were a lot more political undertones about this movie originally, and that's why a lot of people were calling it Marxist propaganda and all this BS. But John F. Kennedy actually crossed the picket lines to this movie, and that helped it become really popular, and I'll get into that in a minute. But Dalton Trumbo wrote it. He also wrote Roman Holiday, The Way We Were, Papillon. He was a great screenwriter, and there's a movie called Trumbo that came out about 10 years ago with Bryan Cranston that's really, really good that I highly recommend as well.
Magnificent movie.
Yeah.
Such a good movie.
I think he was nominated for an Oscar, wasn't he?
He was nominated for an Oscar, and he did not win, and it was horseshit. He should have absolutely won.
Okay. And this is the third Stanley Kubrick movie that we've picked, because I picked The Shining, and you've introduced me to Dr. Strangelove, thank God. So good.
So now I got to do another Stanley Kubrick flick.
You do, which I think you're picking Full Metal Jacket at some point, so I think it's on the list
At some point.
Yeah.
Or 2001 Space Odyssey, or Barry Lyndon, or Clockwork Orange. Who knows?
You
One
do
of
love
them
Barry
I
Lyndon.
will be definitely throwing on.
That's true.
I do. And I'm a big Clockwork Orange fan as well.
So that's who made this movie, and getting into the trivia a little bit. Oh, wait, shoot. Oh, my God. Okay, I'm not getting into the trivia because I need to ask you what you thought of this movie. I'm so excited about the stories.
Oh, I thought we were just going to glaze over that whole portion of our podcast, but that's okay.
Oh, running you over like a horse-drawn chariot. Sorry about that. Why don't you go ahead and let's have a conversation about when the last time you saw this movie was and what you thought about this revisit.
All right. Last time I watched it was in 2020, so 6 years ago.
Okay,
and
so not
I
that long.
thought that I had seen it before then, but it wasn't that long ago. And I thought I had seen it before then, but I'm going to tell you right now, there's no way that I had. That was the first time I watched it. And the first time I watched it, I loved it. I thought it was a sprawling epic. I thought it was magnificent. The soundtrack is fantastic. The cinematography is amazing. The set pieces are great. Stanley Kubrick brings it home as he normally does, and Trumbo's screenplay is very good. Really enjoyed it the first time. The second time, I thought Kirk Douglas was an atrocious actor. Absolutely terrible. I don't know if it was the editing this time around, the pacing. I don't know what it was. It throws me in movies, especially from back in the day, the 60s, even early 50s, where there's just a lot of staring. Like all Kirk Douglas does is like try and stare down people. And it just didn't work for me this time around.
The hardest thing to do as an actor is nothing.
Yeah, and maybe that's what it is, because he's just like when he's in prison and she shows up to feed him and like, I've never had a woman, stuff like that. Cool. But when the guards come in, or like when he's being branded, or when the one guard especially is like, oh, I see you want to kill me. Why don't you try to kill me? Give him a sword. And he just stands there and just looks at him. There's nothing in his face. There's no anger. There's no aggravation. He doesn't even squint his fucking eyes at all to give the audience like, fuck you, man. I'm not going to do this. I'm not stupid. And then the guy's like, well, you're actually intelligent. Give him a... It's like, What? Okay. All right. Fine. Cool. Moving on.
See, I saw that as
I did not like Kirk Douglas at all.
I saw that as simmering, everything simmering under the surface until he finally unleashes it all to start the rebellion. And that's what I thought the choices were about. But again, this is Stanley Kubrick. He lingers on everything.
There is a lot of lingering, and I when I was watching this time, I was reminded of a couple of things that I read about the making of this movie.
Yes.
And you will talk about it, I imagine. So anyway, we'll get into that in a little bit. However, I still like the movie. I will tell you, as absolutely, I am concrete on this. The movie ends terribly. I hate the ending of Spartacus.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely hate the end.
Really?
Not because of what happens. I just don't like that that's how the movie ends.
What would
I think
you
it's
want
a little
instead?
bit ridiculous. I honestly, and this sounds weird, I don't want them to obviously frolic into the sunset together
right.
or like with his team, but like there should have been, in my opinion, everything that's going down, there should have been just a little bit of a better jovial ending, I guess. I don't know. It really, I guess by the third hour, I was kind of like, okay, I'm ready for this to be over. And
to quote someone, because I've been rewatching this show recently, actually, which goes kind of along with our movies this week. For both of these films, considering they have historical precedents, if you're hoping for a happy ending, you haven't been paying attention.
No, and I totally get that, and I wasn't necessarily hoping for a happy ending. I think also at the same time, I forgot how it ended when I first watched it the first time. And then after that, I commented, I had a chat with a couple people. I was like, yeah, the movie's fucking awesome. It's Spartacus, it's Stanley Kubrick, it's Kirk Douglas. It's one of those movies similar to like Ben-Hur, Ten Commandments, Lawrence of Arabia, that are sprawling epics that are good because of not only the production, but the merit of which they hold in Hollywood at the time, right? Overall, I don't know if I would ever watch Spartacus again after this time around. It's not a bad movie. I'm not saying I hated my time with it. I really did enjoy it, and there were moments where I was like, oh shit, like I completely forgot about certain moments with Kirk Douglas and certain characters, and I thought that I laughed a lot. The dialogue is very witty, it's very sharp. Like I said, like you said, Dalton Trumbo, he was a great writer. The movies that you listed that he wrote, I haven't seen all of them, but it was a good experience to watch it. Like I said, I don't think I'd ever watch it again, and I understand what it did, and I know it was nominated for a couple of Oscars. I don't know which ones because I didn't really look too deep. Obviously, I don't do that with your picks, but overall, I would give this one like a B- and say, yep, I've seen it twice. I'm good. Never need to see it again.
Okay.
And that happens every now and then with certain movies. And now, granted, 6 years ago, I was a little younger. I was 34 years old. I remember watching it in my 100-year-old building that Cecil B. DeMille built.
So exactly
there was
the place
a
to
lot
watch
of
that
like
film.
totally. There was a lot of like Hollywood in me when I was watching it. And I took it as like, okay, this is exactly what I should be doing right now.
Yeah, I get that.
And I'm not saying watching it where I'm currently living now was a bad thing. I watched it on my double VHS. I watched it on VCR. I watched it on a flat screen TV. It still looked amazing. The costumes are
killer,
monumental, absolutely amazing. And another thing similar to my movie, and we'll get into my movie obviously in a little bit, but there are wide shots where there's got to be at least 2,000 fucking people in the shot.
Oh,
and it's all real. It's all real. All the horses, all the men, all the women, that scene that opens up the movie, people in the distance, they are out there doing that. And there's an AD or a PA. Who the hell knows how many people worked on this movie? But there's somebody out there being like, all right, guys, camera's going up. Let's do it. Start getting into get on your horses. Da-da-da. That is filmmaking. That's the epicness. That is the sprawling aspect of the fact that they spared no expense in making sure the wide shots were as believable as they could be. That's Stanley Kubrick also. He very rarely used visual effects. Granted, visual effects were still becoming a thing at the time. And I know 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea relied very much on special effects. But I do like Kirk Douglas than 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. I think that's one of the better Disney live-action movies. I've read the illustrated classic from Jules Verne. I never actually read the book itself, but similar to like Moby Dick and Ivanhoe and like all these books back when I was between 7 and 11 years old, the illustrated classics was a big thing for me growing up, and sounds like you also read the same one. Yeah, Spartacus is, for what it was at the time, is a masterpiece. It's not a masterpiece that I'm, like I said, likely to ever watch again. And that's not because I didn't like it.
I appreciate that, though. No, I do really appreciate that, because we work very hard to distinguish a quality movie from our opinion. And I really like that you can actually differentiate that this week by saying, and I agree, and I have we'll talk about it in a minute, but I totally understand what you're saying, and there are many times where we watch masterpieces where we could say, oh, I can see why people call it a masterpiece. I never want to see this again. Or very depressing movies. Great. Awesome movie. Never want to see that again. I mean, there are also terrible movies, like the movies that won Oscars a couple years ago that were like, oh, wow, they won a bunch of accolades. Don't know why. But this isn't one of them. And so I appreciate that, and I appreciate you using that nuance a little bit. And I totally understand. I mean, these are 3+ hour movies. This is not something you're going to watch willy-nilly every couple months, right? And I understand that, and I appreciate
and it's so weird to say that,
though.
Too.
No, not necessarily. No, I mean, there is
of course.
lot
I was going to
in these movies.
Yes, there is. There's a lot.
So much marching.
And it's interesting to be like, okay, so Spartacus is 3:17, I think, like 3 hours 17 minutes or 3 hours 20 something minutes.
Yeah.
Titanic is 3 hours and 15 minutes. I'll watch Titanic once a year. I'll watch the first Avatar once a year. Absolutely, pacing's better. Now, granted, they are trying to show you what shit was like back then. Now, granted, we don't have any idea.
Well, it's also
we have no
Stanley
idea.
Kubrick.
We're going off of that too. But bleeding my movie into this, there are moments in each of these movies similar to the stare downs and similar to the quiet moments and these long sprawling shots of people standing in a room. That's what they perceived was going on back then, based off of what people read. So it's such an interesting way to tell a story with so many shots that are there's nothing happening. They're just looking at each other or looking out into the distance or whatever.
Funny enough, I'm going to play devil's advocate for my own goddamn movie right now, but I will push back on that a little bit because Ben-Hur came around at the same time, and I remember watching this is not now my second time as well, thinking Ben-Hur did this better.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Lawrence of Arabia did it better.
The world's better.
10 Commandments did it better.
Never saw it.
There are other epics that, well, you will.
Yes.
There are other epics out there around the same time. It was just done better. And that's not because who was involved was a hack or whatever.
No.
There's just
style.
There's a different way of exactly. There's a different way of telling a story. Yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. And of course, we are admirers of Kubrick. Now you look at The Shining, that's 2.5 hours, right? And there was a lot of moments in The Shining where nothing is, but there's times where Jack is just walking down a hallway.
And it works.
But it works.
Yeah.
Exactly, it works. There are moments in Spartacus where Kirk Douglas is standing there with the hole in his chin, and it's like
he has a major.
Okay, are we?
Yeah.
What's happening? What's happening? What's happening? What's happening?
No, I agree with you.
So
I totally agree with you, and that was my one aspect of the movie that I had a criticism of as well. Is that I thought the pacing was off, but I excused it because it's Kubrick, not in saying that it's okay. But just understanding why it was there. Oh, well, it's because Of course, he wastes a lot of time. And
like I said, for the time, and even nowadays, though, like there's never going to be another movie like Spartacus. They made
a series, but that's it.
Yes, they did. Yeah. But a movie that is sprawling like this, that is practical.
I mean, Oliver Stone
similar to my
tried to with Alexander, and he failed spectacularly. Peter Ustinov actually joked because from pre-production to production, this was a 3.5-year endeavor, and he joked about his daughter was born at the beginning of production, and she was in kindergarten by the time this movie came out, and so when she was asked what her father did for a living, she would just answer Spartacus, right? I mean, this is a notoriously long shoot, 167 days of filming, which is over 5.5 months.
Wow.
Actually, even though we're talking about Kubrick a lot, he's disowned the movie. He does not include it as part of his canon. He does not want to be associated with it because he was super butthurt that his contract did not give him complete control over filming. Production companies did have some final cut. They did heavy-handedly edit a little bit of the message of this film and the themes, and there's a classic scene, which is why that boy in Clueless picked this film. Crassus is in one of the Roman baths and is hitting on Antoninus, Tony Curtis's character, and he's talking about oysters.
That's in the one.
So there's a very specific scene where Crassus is hitting on Antoninus, and it's very, very subtle, but he's talking about oysters and preferences versus taste and taste versus appetites. It's very well written, don't get me wrong, but he absolutely is coming onto him. And so with the homosexual undertones, the MPAA cut that, because who wants any gayness in a movie? God forbid. These guys are all wearing togas. Just ridiculous. But it was back in the day. It was the 60s. It's not surprising that they cut it. But for multiple reasons, Kubrick actually doesn't want to have anything to do with this. He blessed the 1991 remaster, but that was it. He doesn't have any connection to it, and he really wanted to highlight how corrupt the Romans were, and he didn't get to, again, the Marxist messages. They were so scared of that in the 60s. And because it's Kubrick, cinematographer Russell Meddy walked off the set. And he said that Kubrick was not letting him do his job, and even though Meddy was ultimately given credit for the director of photography on this movie, he didn't do anything. Kubrick was previously a professional photographer and had shot some of his previous movies, so he stepped in and basically was the cinematographer on the entire shot.
Wow.
Yeah.
Ooh. That's some juice.
Yeah, but Kubrick only wanted to shoot at 2 camera setups a day.
Oh my God.
So for our audience, that's saying, hey, we're going to set up this scene and shoot it. All right, we're done. Let's go set up somewhere else and we're going to shoot that scene. All right, we're done. Let's go set. You do many of those a day. Kubrick only wanted to do 2. The studio insisted he do 32, which is a lot. Compromise of 8 was made.
Wow. See, even 8 is
slow
for something like
shit.
this. I feel like it's definitely slow, but again, it's Kubrick, and we all know Kubrick was not a 1 to 10 take Charlie type of a guy.
And that's the thing that I'm always so torn with looking at his filmography, because I do say I am a fan of his for the most part, and I respect his artistry and his talent, but he was difficult and not
notoriously
fun to work with, and so he's getting into that realm of just being a picky asshole, and that's where I've always been a little bit gray area with Kubrick. I'll happily talk about his movies, but he wasn't a guy I'd ever want to work with.
Fincher is like
versus David O. Russell, who's just a giant asshole and nobody should work with him. He should never be given a script because he's a prick.
Yeah, he's a giant dillweed. I mean, 8 setups a day on a movie like this, I feel would absolutely make sense. 32 setups.
Makes sense.
Yeah, but 32 setups a day for a movie like that just does not seem conducive, truthfully, especially if Kubrick's at the helm of it. I don't think it would have. I feel like it would have suffered. And now, granted, that would have 32 setups. He could have totally done his thing and been like, all right, well, we'll just cover this scene 32 different setups today. That's how Kubrick thought, and that's how his mindset was. But I feel like 8 and now, granted, you said it was a 5.5 month shoot. That's a long time. And I really thought it was going to be a longer shoot than that. Truthfully.
I thought it was like 9 months.
Consecutive, like 5.5, like from beginning to end, or did they stop?
Well, they did shoot in a lot of different locations, and I'll get into that in a second. So it probably wasn't exactly back to back, because they shot in California, they shot on some sets, some backlots. They also shot at Hearst Castle, which is awesome.
Oh.
That's the set for Crassus's villa. God, I just kept thinking of Hercules through this whole movie. It's a lot of yusses.
Yeah, oh gosh, I know.
And then they also shot in Spain. With that 1991 restoration, the soundtrack had been lost, and that's one of the things I liked much more about my movie than yours. I thought the soundtrack fit because it felt more authentic. Yours felt like a very 60s score.
Yeah, oh, big time, yeah.
And this soundtrack, actually, the composer used a lot of instruments from that time period, or that they could find, or similar sounds, and so I thought it helped a lot. But in the 1991 remaster, not only had the soundtrack been lost, so they had to redo that, but most of the dialogue had to be dubbed as well. Tony Curtis redid all of his lines, but Laurence Olivier had died. Yeah. His widow, Laurence Olivier's widow, had remembered that Sir Anthony Hopkins had done a dead-on impression of Olivier, and she mentioned this to the restoration team. So they reached out to Anthony Hopkins. He agreed to voice all of Laurence Olivier's lines in specific scenes that were needed, and he's thanked in the credits in the restoration, which is so cool.
Okay, I saw that in the credits.
Yes.
And I was like, Anthony Hopkins.
Right?
Whoa. That is
so awesome.
That is really badass. That's so cool.
And as you said, there are a lot of sets. This is very expansive. Kubrick spent over $40,000 on the Gladiator training set alone. It bordered the freeway.
Really? 40 grand?
Yeah, it bordered the freeway because this was down in LA. So this is so horrible. A 125-foot asbestos curtain was erected.
No.
In order to block the freeway from the burning of the camp. This is the original rebellion that Spartacus and his friends take place.
Oh, wow.
It was all organized with the LA Fire Department and everything, but the studio had said that there were 5,000 uniforms and 7 tons of armor that were borrowed from Italian museums, and every single one of Hollywood's 187 stuntmen were trained in the gladiatorial rituals of combat to the death for the shooting of this movie.
Wow.
He insisted that all battle scenes were filmed on a vast plain outside of Madrid. 8,000 trained troops from the military were used to double as the Roman infantry. Kubrick directed the armies. This is so classic because we've seen shots of this.
8,000.
He was on top of those specially constructed towers with huge bullhorns, right? And he arranged each corpse with a number and instructions because he was so goddamn meticulous.
Wow.
This production utilized over 10,000 people.
My lord.
And unfortunately, the studio actually had him edit a lot of the battle sequences because they were too bloody, because I thought that was some of the best parts of the movie. It was so epic.
They were awesome.
And they were way too short. I was so bummed out when I read that the studio actually made him edit it out. Especially because there was a lot of build up to it. It's kind of a big climax battle, and then it's done. And I'm like, God, what?
Yeah.
This should have gone... Of all things to go on for a long period of time, that's what should have gone on for. It was really disappointing.
And that's what the people want.
Yeah, and I always think back to, and I think The Patriot taught me that with the Mel Gibson movie, where historically all armies would find a big flat plane and then they'd bam, head-on collision with each other, and let's see who survives, which was so stupid to me. And then in The Patriot, they started actually evolving that, where they were more of a jungle warfare, and they'd start attacking the British on the way to a place, and through the trees and everything. And I'm like, yeah, this is the smarter way to do it. What? So many films, right? I mean, Braveheart and all these big epic battle sequences from period pieces. And rewatching Game of Thrones recently, like Battle of the Bastards, I'm like, why are you guys on a big open plane? This is so stupid. Anyway, that's just my commentary on battle plans back in the day. But there is a moment that is actually a little bit brutal, that Spartacus chops off the arm of a Roman soldier.
Yeah, right.
That was a real sword. They hired a man who was an amputee.
No shit, nice.
And Kirk Douglas had to hit exactly the right mark to A, not chop the rest of his arm off, but also B, engage all of the blood, little tubes that... And he performed the stunt once, and he refused to do a second take, which I'm sure pissed off Kubrick, because you know how he was.
Oh, I'll bet it did.
Yeah, so that's Spartacus. It had a $12 million budget, which was a hell of a lot for back then. It was the most expensive movie at the time, until your film, and it made $30 million in the U.S., and in total $60 million worldwide. It became the number one movie of the year for 1960. Again, John F. Kennedy helped with that.
Yeah.
The line, "I am Spartacus," was voted as number 64 of the 100 greatest movie lines by Premiere Magazine, which is awesome. So it was great to see that scene again. And yes, you're right. It was nominated for a hell of a lot of Oscars. Best score and best editing, actually, were nominations. It won for costume design.
Makes sense.
Art direction and set decoration for Eric Orbaum, but unfortunately it was posthumous because he had died in post-production.
Oh.
It won for cinematography, and Russell Meddy, because he was given that credit, won the Oscar instead of Kubrick, even though Kubrick did the cinematography.
Ooh, yikes.
Which I think is hilarious.
That is pretty funny, but kind of fucked up.
He was also the cinematographer for Bringing Up Baby.
Oh, cool.
And it also won Best Supporting Actor for Peter Ustinov. So Little John's voice is an Oscar winner.
Yeah, that's sweet.
So that is Spartacus. Thank you so much for watching it a second time, and I'll probably watch it again in the future, but not for about 10 years or so.
I was going to say, if there's anybody that comes over and it's like, I've never seen it, I'll watch it.
Totally. Yeah.
I personally am not going to be like, you know what, it's a Spartacus day. I'm not going to do, I don't think I'll do that.
Yeah. No. But it is definitely worth watching, I think, for anybody who hasn't seen it, for someone who wants to see old, epic Hollywood productions, who wants to go through some Oscar winners. It's awesome. I mean, it is a great movie to see once, right?
For sure. I absolutely agree.
Good. I'm so glad. Well, that is my epic description and stories behind the making of Spartacus. And now it's time to get into your movie. I hope I didn't go over my time. I was hoping I'd get through that
by
a little
5
bit
minutes.
quicker. Oh, okay. But we did have a really good discussion about this movie, and I'm really glad that happened. So now we are going to continue our historical examination of the Roman Empire. Fast forward, about 40 years?
All right, let's do it. Let's get into the longest movie that I have ever done on Movies You Miss podcast. This movie comes in at 4 hours and 6 minutes.
You don't
I have
ever
never done
need to
a
break that
4-hour movie.
Please never break that title again.
No, I don't think I ever will, unless
record.
we decide to break the record and watch the 5.5-hour cut of my movie from 1963, which I don't think we ever will do, because 4 hours and 6 minutes is just enough.
I would argue it's a little too much, but we can get into that. And
well, I say just enough being polite. It certainly could have ended at 3 hours and 25 minutes and still been a few minutes longer than Spartacus, but that's not what happened. Yeah. So this movie was directed by 2 directors. First director was Ruben Mamoulian. He was fired during the production of this movie based off of he and Elizabeth Taylor clashing quite a bit.
Oh.
And Joseph Mankiewicz was brought on per Elizabeth Taylor. Her contract gave her stipulation on who she could hire, and they both had worked together on a couple of movies prior to this movie, and we'll get into a little bit of that, even though I don't really like to talk about the actors' credits or anything like that, but this is the first Elizabeth Taylor movie that I've ever done, and Elizabeth Taylor, if you don't know, is Wilma Flintstone's mother in The Flintstones with John Goodman and Elizabeth Perkins.
Of all of her credits in her iconic career...
I had to.
That's just insulting. Even her childhood credits with Disney are better. Like National Velvet, that's an incredible.
I was going to say, she was in National Velvet, which is a great movie, a really insane movie. She was also in one of the original Little Women adaptations. She was in an Ivanhoe adaptation as well. She is in my favorite James Dean movie, which I think her performance is actually better than in this movie. She's in Giant with James Dean, which is on my list for epics in the future for next year. It sounds like that will be when that one comes out. She was also in Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf and so many other movies from back in the day. She ended up passing away. 2011 was when Elizabeth Taylor passed away. Richard Burton's also in this movie, as is Rex Harrison. There's a lot of other actors that kind of pop up, and I got this actor confused with Peter O'Toole for a second, and then I realized, of course, that's not Peter O'Toole, because when he smiled, I realized, oh yeah, that's Martin Landau. So Martin Landau is in this movie. He plays Rufio, and we also have Roddy. Yeah, the eyes, definitely. And the nose a little bit. And we have Roddy McDowall, who plays Octavian. And Rex Harrison plays Julius Caesar. We have Richard Burton as Mark Antony. And Elizabeth Taylor in the title role, because I have not said it yet, this is Cleopatra. Now, V, you said this was the first time you'd seen Cleopatra. Mm-hmm. All right, sweet. This movie was written by a handful of people. Joseph Mankiewicz was in the process of rewriting this movie while production was going on. The original screenplay was pretty much shirked after the original director got fired from this movie, per Elizabeth Taylor. Sidney Buckman and Randall McDowell also credited as writers. We also have historians, Appian and Plutarch, I believe is how you pronounce that one. Mm-hmm. And we have Suentius, who I've never heard of. Now, I've never done any real research on Cleopatra, so I just take this movie as a historical truth. No, I'm kidding. I definitely don't do that.
I was shocked at how accurate the key historical events were. I was impressed.
Yeah, they definitely get a good amount of it in this 4 hour and 6 minute movie. Although, like I mentioned, there is a 5.5 hour cut.
I mean, both of our movies are way more accurate than Braveheart. Let's put it that way.
That is absolutely true. Yes, 1,000%. Let me break down Cleopatra, because there is so much behind the scenes of this plagued production that I cannot wait to talk about. I'm going to try and be as straightforward as I can and not go too deep into the breakdown of Cleopatra. If you've seen it, you know what happens. If you haven't, here it goes. Julius Caesar has just finished the Battle of Pharsalus in 48 BC, and he has been summoned by a now dead pharaoh in Egypt to get to Egypt and figure out a way to get Ptolemy VIII and his sister Cleopatra to agree on how to rule the city of Alexandria. Ptolemy is not about this. He wants his own city, so that's why he has essentially banished his sister out, and his sister is kind of nowhere to be found. However, one night while Caesar is alone in his chambers, Cleopatra shows up, rolled up like a burrito in a rug.
I did not know where that scene was going originally. I was like, what the?
Neither. It's funny. The first time I watched this movie was 10 years ago, and I do not remember that's how we're introduced to Cleopatra in the slightest. But anyway.
It's so undignified, given it's Elizabeth Taylor.
It really is. Yeah, but at the same time, she's got to sneak in. Like, she can't let her brother know that she's back.
Yeah, he's a giant
So
asshole.
he is big time. Yeah, of course. Typical male ruler, right? No women shall rule. Exactly. So now that Cleopatra has been snuck into the city by her servants, into the city of Alexandria, into the chambers of Julius Caesar and Cleopatra begin a dialogue, and Cleopatra is very much of the mindset that she needs to get her brother off of the throne and that Alexandria and Egypt are hers to rule. And the only way that she feels that can actually take place and begin is if Caesar marries her and gets rid of Ptolemy VIII. The dialogue in this scene is very good. It's very, very intense, very political. I like the way that this movie is broken down in the first hour, because while we've talked about pacing issues, I had a little bit more of a difficult time with the pacing in Spartacus than I had with this one. And I think only because the dialogue in Cleopatra between Elizabeth Taylor's character and Rex Harrison, Caesar's not even really the ruler of Rome yet. And we're learning this over the course of their conversation. Caesar's telling her that he needs to either become the great dictator of Rome or become the king of Rome for them to get married and for him to help her execute the idea of her being the ruler of Egypt.
And I love when she's like, sounds great. Let's do that.
Yeah. And, of course, one thing leads to another, and they end up making an agreement, and Cleopatra and now Caesar are sworn to each other. Yes, they do indeed.
Way to put it.
Yeah. And my gosh, Elizabeth Taylor, she was so striking back. Ooh, gosh.
I love
There's
how,
so many moments.
not to interrupt the plot, but I just want to say before I forget, I love how shrewd Cleopatra is in this movie. I love 1963, a strong woman ruler who's smart. I was like, oh, this is so refreshing.
Yeah, definitely. And that's another thing that I really like about the movie itself is that they don't make her out to be like, well, this is mine and that's all we get. Like,
or I'm only going to use my feminine wiles in order to be powerful.
Right.
It's like, no, she was a strategist and she was a badass.
She knew what the hell, she knew exactly what the hell she wanted and how she could take it away from her brother as co-ruler of Egypt. So Caesar ends up going back to Rome after he finds out that Cleopatra is now pregnant with his heir, potentially a son. Of course, back then they couldn't tell what they were going to have, but just like any other story like this, of course it's got to be a son. So Caesar goes back to Rome, and he has then, literally within seconds of returning to Rome, he has been granted the dictator for life of Rome. But he still wants to be king, so he's still a little bit weary about letting Cleopatra come to Rome and live out their potential campaign to get her back on the throne of Egypt. This leads to the Senate having a little bit of an issue with the fact that Caesar has now married Cleopatra and has been promising her all these things without the evidence of the fact that their son Caesarion has yet to be born. However, Caesarion is born, the news gets to Caesar, and he invites Cleopatra to Rome to live out their relationship. This is when we are also introduced to Mark Antony, played by Richard Burton. Richard Burton was quite the actor. He was also in Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf with her. He's also in a film called The Spy Who Came In From the Cold, which I've heard is a great movie from 1965. It's a black and white. I've never seen it. He was also in an adaptation of 1984. Mark Antony and Julius Caesar, they come off as friends and political friends, but they kind of have a little bit of a rivalry between them because this is when Cleopatra shows up in Rome to, in my opinion, the greatest and grandest practical sequence that's ever been put to film, of any film that exists even today, because stuff like this is all done in CGI on green screen. This was done practically, and we'll get into that in just a little bit.
So good. I totally agree with you.
It's ridiculous. I think I've watched that sequence in this movie at least 15 times because of just how monumental it is.
Mm-hmm.
So now that Cleopatra is in Rome, things start to get a little bit heated between Mark Antony and Caesar. Caesar is then assassinated, and now Cleopatra has to flee back to Egypt because she's afraid that her and her son are going to get overthrown as well by the Senate. And Mark Antony ultimately starts to fall in love with Cleopatra and starts telling Cleopatra that he can help her. Of course, we're not entirely sure what he necessarily means by that because this is a political drama more than anything. And as she is in Egypt, her and Mark Antony start to develop a relationship as well. She also, a very smart woman, knows how to use her body, knows how to use her mind, and Antony buys into a lot of it. And especially later on in this story, when Rome goes to battle with Egypt on the water, which I gotta tell you, that sequence is pretty fucking incredible too.
So good. It blew me away, literally, how they set that up. It's so incredible.
And before this huge battle on the water, Cleopatra is summoning Antony to Egypt so that they can discuss what the next step is. And of course, he wants her to come to Rome so that they can discuss it on Roman soil. So brilliantly, she comes on a massive boat, and then she has her representative step out and says, "You need to come on this boat." And he goes, "Well, we need her on Roman soil." He goes, "Well, we need you on Egyptian soil." He goes, "Well, you're in Rome." He says, "No, she's still in Egypt on this boat. So you got to come to Egypt to discuss what you need to discuss with Cleopatra."
Such a power
blew my
play.
mind.
It was so good.
So amazing. I was sitting here this time around, I'm like, oh, she's got you by the balls, baby. So what does he do? He gets on the ship, and they have more dialogue back and forth. And I can't go into anything else other than the fact that after Caesar is assassinated, he has an adopted son named Octavia that is now about to take over the dictatorship of Rome, and he's going to be the one to very likely overthrow Cleopatra in Egypt to take Egypt and have the Romans now rule Egypt and Alexandria. And Antony is doing what he can to avoid that from happening. But there's just so much political bullshit going on between everybody and the Senate of Rome and in Egypt. And for the rest of the movie, we're along, well, for the next 3.5 hours, we are along for the ride of truly epic battle sequences, fantastically written dialogue. The cast is great. Elizabeth Taylor, super just hypnotic to watch, and I really got to be honest. The second time around, I didn't love it as much as I loved it the first time, but I still liked it over Spartacus because of the way that she handles herself and the way that everybody starts to realize that Cleopatra is just not going to back the fuck down. And everybody really starts getting afraid of this woman, and she holds her own beautifully up until the end. And talking about it, I'm getting more excited about it because when it ended, like we mentioned earlier, well, you and I were talking, I don't think this is on record yet, but I had to stretch. I had to walk around. The intermission was good, but I could have gone without an intermission at the same time, but I definitely needed it because I needed some water and I needed to just kind of let my brain marinate on the first 2 hours of the movie. So that's the breakdown of Cleopatra. If I've broken that movie down horribly for our audience, I apologize. I feel like I got the bullet points and the plot points that are very important for this 4-hour epic to hopefully make you want to see it. It's certainly worth seeing. I think Joseph Mankiewicz did a pretty phenomenal job. And before I get into a lot of the massive issues that fell upon this production of Cleopatra over the course of a 3-year period, V, this was your first time, so break it down. What did you think of Cleopatra?
I love the dialogue. I agree with you, and I loved her representation. I think Elizabeth Taylor did a pretty good job, and this movie just opens up and gets into it. I was worried that I was starting after the intermission and going, did I start it at the right spot? Because this just dives right in, but no, it absolutely does, and that's where it starts, and the sets are incredible. Oh my gosh, every single set in this movie is just magnificent and humongous.
Oh, yeah.
Just completely epic. It certainly fits the title and the theme of this episode. And it was wonderful to see these historical figures brought to life. And I like that I've heard about the Roman Empire and going from the Senate into a full emperor formula, but not with these transitions. And of course, I've heard of Mark Antony and Cleopatra and Julius Caesar before, but I hadn't gotten the background of the transitions, right? And I really liked that aspect of it, and just very interesting in terms of the historical context. And I agree with you. I think the back and forth is great, and I think that's actually one of my problems, though, with the movie, is that the first half of this movie is wonderfully written. The dialogue has a lot of tension in it. There's a lot going on. And then the second half of this movie kind of meanders and peters a bit, where I thought if they'd edited a bunch of it out, they made the second half a lot tighter, it would have been a great tight film that I probably would be willing to watch again. I don't know if I'd watch this movie again, only because, man, there's a lot of downtime. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, there is. A lot.
The burning of the Library of Alexandria is my Roman Empire. I will never get over that.
Oh, yeah. Right.
I love that they depicted that in the movie as well. There was an interesting aspect, though. Elizabeth has a scar, which I hadn't seen her have that, really. I hadn't noticed that before, because most of the movies I've watched of hers were pre-1960. And that is the one piece that I did look up. I'm not going to talk about it, but I just had to know. I'm not sure if you're going to talk about it during your breakdown.
I'm definitely going to talk about it.
Good, but it was fascinating. I really just had to know, but that caught me a little bit. And we already talked about the score, I think, being a little bit out of, just not a match. I thought they could have done better. But yes, the parade, completely jaw on the floor, back all the way to the back of the couch, just holy shit. Like, I've heard of the epicness of this movie. I've heard of the grandness, the scale, and the disasters of this movie. But seeing it, I was like, oh, no, I get it. No, this movie is absolutely a must-watch just for the production value, just because it's historically important to Hollywood and its story. And it's a well-made movie, don't get me wrong. I do think, like mine, it needed to be edited a bit, not because you and I have shorter attention spans these days, because you and I are happy with 3-hour-plus movies. We've discussed it. But just in terms of the pacing issue and telling a story in a more captivating way. So I agree with that. But then the one thing I will tell you about the second half that I really did love, because the first half of the movie, I'm like, okay, this is really interesting. There's a lot of political drama. All these people have huge egos. They're, just all up in each other's business, and they all want power, and I get that. And then the second half, like I said, it did start to meander a little bit, but I think Elizabeth's performance is way better in the second half than the first half, because in the first half, I'm like, well, she's kind of
fully
wooden.
agree.
She felt a little wooden to me, and I was a little bit taken aback, and I was like, no, I know she's a good actress. And I was like, man, is this falling flat for me? Am I not really getting it? And then the second half comes along, and man, does she come out of her shell. She spreads her wings.
Yeah, she really...
There's a moment that she gets some bad news, and she curls her lip. And it's subtle enough not to be overacting, but it's noticeable enough to be like, oh shit, she's mad. Like, she is furious, and she does it so well. And then she just fully crashes out, and I love that scene so much. I'm like, yeah, girl, be pissed. I would be too. Like, I get it. Like, man, I love that scene so much. And then somebody comes back to her court, and her dialogue is exceptional. And I was all in on that scene. I was like, oh, she is just tearing this person down one end and up the other, and good God, like, just keep going. Like, I was rooting for her in that scene. I was clapping. I was so happy. So yeah, there are a couple scenes in the second half that just gave me life, and they were purely her scenes. So enthralled by that performance. So yeah, it's this weird mixed emotion that I have, that I think the first half of the movie is better, but her performance is better in the second half. So that's kind of weird. You're right. Yeah. The naval battle is just monumental. Oh my God, I can't believe they got all that done. Super cool and crazy.
I know. So nuts.
But, there is an aspect of this movie that encompasses a really toxic relationship that kind of made me sad too. And knowing what happens, because these are real historical figures, same with Spartacus, it's hard to see it coming and see the conclusion and be like, man, if you just had made this decision instead of that one, right?
Yeah, right.
It's like an oncoming train that you can't get away from. So that's always a challenging aspect to watching based on true story movies movies when you're like, no, just do it a little different, please. But otherwise, I'm so glad I watched the film. I really don't ever want to watch it again. It was so long, but I will watch clips of it online, especially a couple of those scenes with Elizabeth that I talked about, because they're just too good not to ever see again. But I definitely think everyone should watch both of our movies at least once, just to get them under your belt. They're so sprawling, and just the effort and the time.
They're important to Hollywood.
They're important, and just to give these people their due, the 10,000 people who worked on each project, right? And it is a really cool representation of this historical time period that we don't really see very often. I mean, Gladiator isn't a true story. So
no, it's not.
Seeing something that is based on a true story from this time period is really fascinating. I think they both movies did a really good job, and they're such a perfect pairing because one leads right into the other. And if they'd lived around the same time period, just 40 years apart, but if they'd been around the same time period, I think that would have been fascinating too, and how Cleopatra would have responded to Spartacus, right?
Right.
I loved it. I'm very happy I watched it. Like I said, I'll never watch it again. I do think there are some problems, but again, like you did with Spartacus, B+, the great movie. You can't knock it too much just for the sheer significance of it.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, completely agree. Well, good. I'm glad that you enjoyed your 4 hours and 6 minutes with it.
Yeah.
Like I said, there's several different versions of it. There's the 4 hour, 6 minute version. There is another one that's like 222 minutes, and I think another one that's like 210 minutes. And Joseph Mankiewicz was fired actually during post-production because he wanted to go off the studio's contract and make 2 different movies and have one of them be Cleopatra and Caesar and the other one be Antony and Cleopatra. So he wanted like one 2-hour movie and then another 2-hour movie, which essentially this 4-hour movie is 2 movies in one.
I mean, the intermission does cut it up, but that, just like they do nowadays with the conclusion of Harry Potter or the Hunger Games, but breaking things up into 2 movie conclusions, like I wonder if the pacing, it could have been a bit better, or things could have been granted back then, trying to make things go for that long and multiple productions would never, ever had worked. But I wonder if the story could have been told more cohesively and in a more exciting way. If it was made nowadays, that's the way I'd want it made.
I fully agree with you on that. And Daryl Zanuck, who was the Fox president at the time, ended up bringing Joseph Mankiewicz back because he realized that not only did he write the script, he also directed the fucking movie and knew how to make sure that the movie was going to be paced properly.
The very first director on my movie was fired too. The very beginning.
Oh, really?
He only shot the salt mine scenes and that's it. His name was Anthony Mann. He directed El Cid. And Kirk Douglas hated him and had worked with Kubrick on Paths of Glory and got Kubrick hired instead. And then they fought.
Oh, wow. That's crazy. Isn't that so weird how that happens?
Yeah.
It's happened many times in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Before Mankiewicz was brought on, Ruben Mamoulian was fired, like I mentioned earlier before. He had been on the movie for 16 weeks. $7 million was already spent on the movie before Mankiewicz was brought on. And by the time Mamoulian was fired, between that 16 weeks and $7 million, only 10 minutes of footage was usable.
Oh my God, people.
Could you imagine?
Yeah, because we've seen it. It's ridiculous. And then these guys still get jobs after it. It's so dumb.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts. The movie did finally break even, which I'll talk about towards the end in 1973, and the studio closed the books on the movie, keeping all future profits secret to avoid having to pay anybody that came forward and was like, well, I deserve a percentage of that profit.
Ew, that's gross. Residuals are important, and not paying them is illegal, dicks.
Yeah, I know. Amongst the other things that happened in this movie that were, like I said, this production was a bit plagued. They started production in 1960. The movie was released in 1963. They shot over the course of 2 directors, like I mentioned, and over several years. There were several weeks also during this movie where Elizabeth Taylor was not on set. Speaking of that scar that you were talking about, she ended up getting staphylococcal pneumonia while shooting this movie. On top of that, she also contracted meningitis. So at one point during her pneumonia, they had to perform a tracheotomy on Elizabeth Taylor. And she was so sick, there were tabloids already printing her obituary because they thought that Elizabeth Taylor was on her deathbed.
She was with meningitis and staph pneumonia in the 1960s. She 1,000%. Yeah. That is terrifying.
Yeah. But she ultimately recovered and brought us this performance and several other movies for many, many years after that. So very, very happy that she was able to get better.
Yeah, and I love that she wore that scar like a badge of honor and didn't cover it up.
Yeah. That was my next thing. She did not want her scar covered. She thought it was pretty badass that she survived all that. And of course it is. Absolutely. No, totally fine. I was really kind of clinching my, you know what, when you were talking about the scar, and I was like, oh, V's going to blow one of my thingies.
Nope.
But it's okay. You did not. No, I know you didn't. I know. I appreciate that. Let's talk about Elizabeth Taylor's contract in this movie. She stipulated that her salary be paid out as follows. $125,000 for 16 weeks of work. $50,000 every week after that. Plus 10% of the gross. When filming restarted in Rome in 1961, she had earned already $2 million.
Brilliant woman.
On top of her being sick, she was still getting paid because, she had the pay-to-play contract, essentially, and she was already cast. In 1963, 20th Century sued Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton because they ultimately ended up having a bit of a relationship in this production and for several years after, which they divorced once. They got engaged again, got married again, and got divorced again. So they were on a teeter-totter. Is that what it is? Seesaw? Is that what it's called? A teeter-totter?
Either one. But weren't they also with other people at the time they started hooking up on set, which happens all the time?
Massive controversy.
Yeah.
All the time, yeah. So on top of that $50 million suit that Taylor and Richard Burton were served with, she countersued, and the studio finally settled, and ultimately she ended up taking away about $7 million for the production itself, which is still a lot of money for back in 1960. Yeah. There was a conversation on set between Martin Landau and Joseph Mankiewicz during the production of this movie. Martin Landau's in the movie a good amount. There is so much more footage that was cut from the movie that Mankiewicz told Martin Landau he could have made a completely side project movie called The Further Adventures of Octavian and Rufio.
I bet.
That would have actually been kind of interesting to see.
I do think there was opportunity to focus on a couple other things within the movie. It's just, there was so much downtime, just like my movie. There's too much downtime where there's, I'm sure, so many fascinating stories and characters they could have been focusing on instead. You know what?
Totally agree.
I want Spartacus. Spartacus was made into a show. That's cool. Cleopatra, this whole time, 18-year time period, should totally be made into an HBO show.
Ooh, yeah, that, I would absolutely watch it too. Elizabeth Taylor had this to say about the 3 hour and 14-minute cut. 3 hour and 14 minutes. That's about 45 minutes shorter than the 4 hour, 6-minute cut that everybody has revered as being the cut of Cleopatra. Mm-hmm. She said they cut out the heart and soul, the essence and the motivations, and the core. They tacked on those battle scenes. It should have been about 3 large people, but it lacked reality and passion, and I found it vulgar.
I love that.
I know. She was very passionate about it.
Hell yeah. We talk about editing things out, and I'm sure the stuff that was edited out for the 3-hour version is not what you and I would have taken out.
Yeah. The first cut of Cleopatra, how long do you think it ran for that Mankiewicz put together of Cleopatra after they were done
6
with
hours.
Everything? Yep, you got it exactly. 6 hours. He cut it down to 4, and to do that, they had to reshoot 49 pages of material.
What?
Yeah.
Dude.
I'm telling you, this production was plagued.
They just had a bad director. If you can't find a movie in 6 hours of material, you've failed.
I will agree to an extent on that one. Let's talk about Cleopatra's arrival in Rome.
Yes, please.
That was shot over the course of several months. Because not only
oh my God.
were the background a complete pain in the ass to work with, because all they wanted to do was see Elizabeth Taylor. People were eating gelato during certain scenes. People had written big posters saying, Elizabeth Taylor, my name is. Please say hello to me. They wanted to meet Elizabeth Taylor. At one point, there was a moment where they had shot her being brought in on the Sphinx, and people were chanting something that was taken to be very vulgar towards Elizabeth Taylor because of her whole thing with Eddie Fisher and Richard Burton and how the whole affair made the Vatican feel.
Well, and remember, she took Eddie Fisher from Debbie Reynolds.
Yeah.
And she was really good friends with Debbie Reynolds. She started having an affair with Eddie Fisher, who was Carrie Fisher's dad. And then they're hooking up, and then she cheats on him with Richard Burton. Like, it's a whole big,
Richard
oh my
Burton.
God. There could be a movie on that. Like, that whole mess.
Oh, gosh,
Jesus.
I'm sure there is. I'm sure there's books written about
Probably.
it, too. Which would be kind of an interesting read, but, I'd rather just watch a documentary. So, the production and Elizabeth thought these people were chanting was basically, fuck you, Elizabeth, you are trash, da-da-da-da-da. However, it ultimately came out that what they were saying was, welcome, Elizabeth, we love you, you're great, you're fantastic. So Elizabeth Taylor ended up shutting down production for that little bit so that she could say hello to everybody that was chanting her name and just completely fawning over the fact that Elizabeth Taylor was on set with these people. That scene was over 1,000 extras. And like I said, it was shot over a couple of different months only because the lighting kept changing where they were shooting in London. So they had to shoot a lot of the close-ups at a different time and then bring all that shit back in the future and have her get brought in on that Sphinx. Now, that Sphinx, when she's being pulled in, all those dudes walking back and forth, pulling that damn thing.
So incredible.
I could not find how much these people got paid to do that.
$5.
But
it was
I'm going to tell you, it
1963.
likely was like
$5.
a day rate of like $5. Yeah, maybe $10, especially because they're having to pull something so damn heavy. But it's so magnificent. All those dancers, all of the birds that get released, the practicality of some of what they have, the costumes, absolutely incredible. I love that scene. Like I said, I've seen it so many different times. I've watched it on YouTube. So not only is that just absolutely mind-boggling, the fact that they were able to pull that off. It's burned in my brain forever. That what I would say that's definitely one of the greatest moments in all of Hollywood. Just what they were able to pull off is just so unbelievably impressive.
I totally agree, and I like that you actually mentioned that the production took 3 years because there are points of this movie where her face looks a little bit different, and it's just little subtle changes. Maybe the face looks a little thinner, a little fuller, right? And it makes sense. It was happening over 3 years. And there was a scene that she walked in. I was like, whoa, she looks kind of different right now. And so it's good to know.
Yeah. Also with getting sick and all that kind of stuff.
God, poor woman.
Marilyn Monroe was scheduled to act in a movie called Something's Got to Give in 1962. That movie was shelved because of the budget overrunning and her being a little bit of an unreliable star. And there was a rumor that got back to Elizabeth Taylor that the movie was shelved and Marilyn Monroe was fired so that they could pay Elizabeth Taylor for this movie. Elizabeth Taylor went on a little bit of a tirade about it and said that she was going to quit Cleopatra unless Marilyn Monroe was rehired. They were friends at the time, and Monroe found that to be absolutely amazing and said, you know what, don't worry about it. Declined her to quit the movie because she didn't want to make anything worse between not only Elizabeth Taylor and Marilyn Monroe, even though they were still friends. Marilyn Monroe didn't want the studios to blacklist Elizabeth Taylor for doing something like that.
Or her.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. That's pretty badass. A lot of times you hear about actors and actresses going to bat for each other, and the fact that, and we all know how, especially during when we did Some Like It Hot, how tumultuous that production was because of Marilyn Monroe.
Right.
It's pretty interesting to see that Elizabeth Taylor would go to bat for her, especially knowing how Marilyn Monroe was on certain movies. So, by June 6th of the production of this movie, the Italian shoot of the movie was spending $70,000 per day, and the movie cost a total of $3 million more than Ben-Hur, a previous pick of mine. Now, this movie was nominated for several Oscars. There was a moment, though, where a certain actor did not get nominated for a Best Supporting Actor role. And I got to tell you, Roddy McDowall as Octavia in this movie, he's awesome.
He totally should have been nominated.
So awesome. Well, here's the reason why he was not nominated. And it's a bit of a gut punch. And it seems like he took it rather well. I myself don't take it very well because he was so fucking good in this movie. There was a clerical error when it came to putting his name up for nomination.
Aw, boo.
Yeah. Well, the reason why he didn't get nominated for a supporting actor was because the studio listed him as a leading actor. So when Fox asked the Academy to correct the error, they refused, saying that the ballots had already gone out. So Fox published an open letter in the trade papers to McDowall saying, "We feel that it is important that the industry realize that your electric performance as Octavian in Cleopatra, which was unanimously singled out by the critics as one of the best supporting performances by any actor this year, is not eligible for an Academy Award nomination in that category."
Oh, that's nice, though.
Yeah, and he's, oh, man. towards the end of the movie, he's so awesome.
He's
so
good.
kick-ass.
He definitely stole
I completely think that he
Richard
overshadows.
Burton.
Oh, 1,000%.
Right?
Yeah.
Way better.
Absolutely.
I wasn't that impressed with Richard Burton. I would have been fine with
Neither was I.
casting.
No, neither was I.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. Rex Harrison was great.
Yeah, he was good as Caesar.
You please do.
But
yeah.
I totally forgot to bring this up.
Richard Burton was just kind of like, meh.
He did not impress me a single moment of that movie.
I was hoping that Tony Curtis would show up and like they would recast halfway through the movie.
He would have been a really cool Mark Antony.
Yeah, he would have been pretty awesome.
He has the look,
He would have
too.
been a much better looking man, too. Like, nothing against Richard Burton. He was an all right looking dude. However,
he just wasn't capturing my attention on film. He just didn't.
No, totally. I completely
have
agree.
Any scene presence for me whatsoever.
Yep, fully agree.
Also, given they were having an affair, I didn't see much chemistry between the two either.
I know, isn't that weird? I know. It's so strange when that happens. And Rex Harrison and her definitely had a good amount of electricity between them each. I think it was after this that he went and did My Fair Lady with Audrey Hepburn, which is a great movie as well. That's another epic, like 3.5 hour long movie.
Oh.
Well, not really an epic. It's just time frame wise. It's long.
It's just
now there are two other Cleopatra versions. There's one from 1917 and there's one from 1934. And I'm gonna have to watch the 1934 one because my good buddy and my old landlord Cecil B. DeMille was the one behind that one.
I don't know, because the practicality isn't going to be there. I think you're going to be really let down.
Well, Cecil B. DeMille knew his practicalities. He did 10 Commandments early on, then he did the Charlton Heston 10 Commandments, and that one's got practicality all over it. And
I was just thinking of the time period
discussing
of the 30s.
Oh, well, 1934. Yeah, I don't, there's. Well, I'm gonna watch it anyway.
Let me know.
I don't care what you say.
Let me know.
I will. This movie was nominated for several Oscars: Best Score, Best Film Editing.
Object to that.
The score. I like the score in Spartacus better. And what's funny, when I was watching both of these movies, at one point during Spartacus, I overheard my father-in-law in the next room go, "Are you watching a Western?" Like, no, I'm watching Spartacus.
Perfect.
Best Film Editing also was nominated for Cleopatra. Best Sound, Best Actor in a Leading Role, Rex Harrison. Best Picture, Best Special Effects, Best Costume Design, Best Art Direction, and Cinematography. It won 4. It won Best Effects, absolutely costume design. 26,000 costumes were made for this movie. 26,000 costumes. 79 sets erected for Cleopatra.
Yeah,
at Pinewood, in Italy, on location, etc. Monumental cinema. Best Art Directing, 1. Set Decoration.
God. Thank God. I would have been pissed.
And Best Cinematography.
Okay.
So it definitely won a lot. The budget ultimately adjusted for inflation was $411 million.
Holy shit.
And that's adjusted for inflation 2 years ago in 2024. The original budget ballooned to $44 million, and the worldwide box office gross was only $57.7 million.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And that, again, like I said, it broke even in 1973, and the studio was like, all right, fuck it, close the books, shut it down. Nobody else is getting a piece of this movie, so I don't even know how much residuals were paid out to anybody involved in this movie. But that is Cleopatra, the 4-hour and 6-minute cut. If you care to give it a shot, you can rent it, I believe, on Amazon and Apple TV. I think it's even restored to 4K. I watched my double VHS. This is one over Spartacus I would watch again, but it's going to be a long time. The last time I watched it was 10 years ago, and that was the first time I watched it. So maybe in another 10 years when I'm 50, I'll give it another shot.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I'm glad you enjoyed it as much as you did. That is, those are our epics, ladies and gentlemen. That is a grand total of 7 hours and about 30 minutes of movies right there between the two of us.
Oh my God. Can we take off next week? Or let's just...
Yeah, why not?
Why don't we watch some documentary shorts next week for another episode?
Ooh. Hey, I don't really watch documentary shorts, but I could be down with that. Like a series or something like that. I don't know. But yeah, that is, that's a lot of talking. I know we talk a lot here, but I feel like I talked a lot about Cleopatra. And I hope I did it justice for you. If you haven't seen it, it's absolutely worth seeing, as is Spartacus. I'm not trying to dog on Spartacus. These are landmark films, especially for what everybody went through to make them. And there were a couple things I didn't talk about in Cleopatra, and I just want to, real quick, There are some wide shots similar to Spartacus. There are wide shots in Cleopatra. Unbelievable.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Totally agree.
Insane. So many horses and so many men. And
just filming
you just can't get movies like this anymore.
The set of Rome, I thought both movies did a great job at depicting Rome and the grandness of it as well. Yeah, the wide shots in both films are jaw-dropping, that's for sure.
Indeed, they are. Well, thank you guys for joining us for this discussion on both of these epic films. Next week is going to be a little bit lighter. We're doing our second version of Movies We Hate, because I hate Vee's pick so much that I never even finished it.
Same.
I know you do.
Oh my gosh, same.
Oh, wonderful. Well, now we're going to have to finish both of these movies.
Yeah.
And we'll see who's right and who's wrong.
Audience will help us out
what are
with
you
this.
choosing? Well, I'm going to tell you right now, I think more people are going to side with you because this movie, so many people quote, and it's similar to Step Brothers that I just hate so much. So take it away. What movie are you doing next week?
Well, I picked a comedian that John absolutely hates, Will Ferrell.
Yep.
John C. Reilly, and an early young Amy Adams is in this movie too. This is Talladega Nights.
All right.
Unfortunately,
I think
you
I got
have
about
to...
20 minutes in it.
This is going to be great.
First time I watched it, and I was like, I'm done.
So this is actually, you can only rent it. If you don't want to spend the money to rent it, John, let me know, and I'll send it to you.
All right. Sounds good. I might have to do that.
We both picked comedians that the other one absolutely hates next week.
Yeah, I know. I'm surprised that you were not a fan of this movie, but I at the same time, I can understand why. I chose a movie from 1998 starring Adam Sandler and Henry Winkler and Fairuza Balk and Kathy Bates in one of her best comedic performances, I think. This is 1998's sports comedy, The Waterboy. That's some high-quality H2O.
I got a little bit into this movie, and it was so insulting and offensive, and his voice is so annoying, I immediately turned it off.
Yeah. All right. Well, you're going to have to make it through this 90 minutes this time. If you haven't seen it, everybody, it is currently on Disney Plus and Hulu. Oh, I have a VHS copy of it. You better believe I'll be... Actually, I think I have it on Blu-ray, too. So I'll be watching one of my physical copies of The Waterboy because I saw it 3 times in theaters, and I love The Waterboy. It cracks me up every time.
I'm just embarrassed for you.
All right. Well, stay tuned for next week, and we destroy each other's movies.
Yeah.
Like we did the last time.
Awesome.
It's going to be a fun one. I look forward to it. So thank you guys. Please do rate, review, subscribe, follow us on all social media, keep physical media alive, keep going to the movies as well. We'll see you guys next week. And before we shut down this epic episode, film is a form of art, just like these last 2 movies. And in art, all opinions are valid, except if you think
John and I could ever do more than one epic episode per year.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's good. We'll see. You never know.
No. Unless we're doing podcasting full time, help us get more audience listeners.
That's it right there.
And then we'll start doing more epics.
All right, we'll see you guys next week. Cheers, everybody.
Bye-bye.